Welcome to Talking Tuesdays. I am your host, Fancy Quant, and today I want to welcome Jeff Ryan to the channel.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So, Jeff, we met through a mutual contact here. Fred Viola has also been on the channel as well. Why don't you talk about kind of your venture? Because we've been talking about ventures on this channel here. You're running or co-founder of QUANTkiosk. Can you explain what that is and how that kind of got started?
Yeah, it's kind of a long and windy story. But yeah, it's hard to even go back, but like I started writing open source code in about 20 years ago. And I wrote this quant mod package in R, which became very well used, very well known. And it just kind of grew. It was at the beginning of open source, if you will. There wasn't a lot of, basically, the only reason I wrote it was because I didn't want to write it. It was just, I had to because there was nothing there. So, but what we did there, or what I did, and my co-author Josh, or kind of we collaborated a lot. And actually, that I think the thing that you were talking about recently on like the whole community side
Hmm.
is really where this comes from. And so it's definitely not a, I want to build a data business. Frankly, that's almost the last thing I wanted to do. But I really was sort of disappointed in everything that I would find that wasn't the way I expected it to be. So I thought this is, maybe I need to do this. And the pretext of that was from QuantMod. We had kind of built like this interface to every other data feed that was out there.
Okay.
And not, in lowercase every, but the idea was like free, there's a lot of free data. Back 20 years ago, people didn't really buy data with pull out a credit card and buy it. You could get it from like IQ feed, but mostly you're stuck with like an interactive broker's account or eSig, all of those things that were retail-y. Otherwise, it was go and try and hunt down a rep from Bloomberg or whomever at the time, which was just, not really in the cards for anybody who's trying to build something on their own. And around this time, I had left options trading on the board of options exchange, which was a weird little stint. But that's where I ended up meeting my co-founder. So we had worked together down there. And when we built, or when I'm kind of the software guy. So when I built out, we were trying to like replicate his strategy in a more systematic way. He was, a more traditional look at screens, and I thought, let's try and do. I have like an econometrics background, and I thought, let's try and do this. I'd written code for ever since I was little, and thought it'd be neat. So I picked up R because that seemed like the it was also new and open source, and like there's a
Yeah.
lot of traction coming around. It was really tiny at the time, and I had used Python. I used pretty much everything. But the the tooling around QuantMod, which ended up growing, was like, let's just take, there's too much data that's in a disastrous state, and QuantMod basically like put it together in a nice way. And that sort of got a lot of traction. I mean, really quite a lot of traction. So for 20 years, it's been, top 1% of packages on CRAN. It's like back then there were 400 packages. Now there's 26,000 packages. It's kind of, you can never figure out how much an open source package has been downloaded, but if you kind of roughly do the math on the mirrors, it's something maybe like quarter of a billion times.
Oh,
It's kind of
wow.
this like bonkers level of people like to use it, and it's in books, kind of everywhere. So it's one of those neat that it worked. Of course, if you've done any open source, you realize you also get $0 for it. So
Hmm.
it was fun, and you learn a lot, and you get a huge network then. So that's where like the effort went into building this conference that we have. Still open source, free conference, but it was around like get together people who are interesting and want to talk about what they're doing in finance, which is pretty rare, right? You go to a conference and mostly it's somebody selling you something. That
Hmm.
was never, we just didn't like that. I mean, we'd go, but that wasn't what we wanted to have. We wanted to have this like an event where you could come and you wanted to be there, right? So it was single track. We didn't want to have multiple tracks. It was like, let's just have conversations, hallway time, coffee time, drinks time after, and a couple of days. And it turned out to be people would just come back. I mean, we've had people, I think there are definitely some people who have been there all 17 years. And they don't
Wow.
they're not like locals. Yeah, they come in from everywhere. So super neat. And it just became this really neat thing. In the middle of that or early years, I ended up going to Citadel. which was like kind of a dream prior to that. There was just like it wasn't where I was probably going to end up. But because I had written all the software and because they were building the quant group there, or rebuilding possibly, but GQS or LTQS at that time was the new group. And I don't know, there was everything's fluid in the beginning of every kind of startup, but it felt like a startup, and it was pitched to me as kind of like a startup within the firm, like a brand new group.
How old was
And
Citadel at that point?
this is in 13, so they're pretty old. I mean, it's still
Okay.
like 20. No, not that old. I guess 15, I don't know, whatever that would be, like, something along those lines, 13 years
Okay.
old maybe. Nah, maybe it's older than that. Yeah, it's older than that. I don't know. It's crazy old.
But you still had that feeling though of kind of the startup
I
mentality
mean,
and
the
everything.
firm was pretty established, but it's a very entrepreneurial sort of place, and that was the thing. I mean, obviously, it would have been it would have not turned it down, right? Frankly, all these years later, I would have tried not to tell them that at the time, uh, but it was one of those like this is going to be super cool. Like this is kind of the dream. This would be neat to be part of. And it was they're building out everything from scratch for this desk. So I might have been I don't know like the seventh or something person on the desk, and then by the time I left, it was like the group might have been 200 people. I was uncountable. Like you just didn't know anybody. It was one of those, and it was definitely more keep the lights on. So I built stuff all along from be it like early risk stuff to early attribution stuff to models to all the data pipeline stuff. Like just you had to do everything kind of thing. It was, I don't think too many of us had any titles, frankly, at the beginning. It was just so, and over time that did start to happen, which was not really me again. It was one of those like I like make things. I don't really, I don't like to keep the lights on if that makes any sense. I mean, like I do if I get to be part of like the bigger picture, but
Yeah.
it's just got to be such a big place that you just weren't, there were opportunities to be, but I didn't feel like that's what I wanted to do. And on top of it, I watched the rest of the world start building software that was like either using my software, like big companies,
Yeah.
or going out and raising it was like this I feel, and you can't do anything there, right? So you're obviously locked down, so you can't do just anything. So I got to give some talks here and there, which because I've given talks forever. But it just felt, it wasn't quite me from a, personal standpoint, although working there was just brilliant from the people you get to work with and like the technical challenges. And it turns out all the stuff you had access to because you're just like, man, this place works really well, right? There's great tooling everywhere. You don't even have to think, if you want something, it's
Yeah.
somewhere available. And when I left, it was to go start a company. And so I, sit out garden leave. But at that point, then it was like we had always had this data business. Actually, we started to build out this data business before I went to Citadel. So it kind of had to be mothballed and then resurrected with everything new because it was all can't read old. Turns out Python 2 doesn't work in Python 3 world. So like a lot of it I threw away. And then, but so then just went and built, from scratch. And at that point, it was kind of, I had to build some other things. So that's where we are now. But the idea was if we had this big community of people who like to use the interface, like it feels very research friendly. It is research friendly because like I say, I'm not a computer science person. I've never actually taken a computer science class. And so like I'm not an engineer, but I like to solve problems and I'm pretty good at solving problems, it seems, that match other dumb people like effectively, like somebody who doesn't want to know the engineering but just wants the answer. So I
I,
think I do that okay. And that was kind of the like impetus to build this is like we have the front end, kind of, not really, but like we had the front end that worked pretty well for people and people liked it. And then when, people started to build things around it, like for instance, the time series class that I wrote is what Wes used to model the time series class in Pandas.
okay.
Um, so it was one of those, and Julia did the same thing. It was one of these like, okay, I think I people like the version of things that are easy to use, right? It was just shockingly not the case for anything you buy, almost, right? It's like there's very few products that seem to live in that realm.
Yes.
Uh, so it was one of those like, what if we could then, you can't monetize software. So we can't, and sustainable open source is, I'm fearing for its life, frankly, because it's
Mhm.
hard. So what could we do to keep a community and like openness still alive? And it was good data is still hard to find. It's still blows my mind. And so we decided that this could be a way to take what we know, like, and the sort of the skills of stitching things together and making it available and build from like very, very base. Like, no, we don't license data. We don't do anything like that. We go and like source it directly from source entire pipeline. And then that way we have control over the quality, control over the speed, control over like the completeness. If you need, it's funny, we process everything that comes in. And I every day I'm kind of amused by some like a company filing like a 10Q or 10K that is from a company that I don't have any idea who the company is, but like they're getting processed live. And I just saw one yesterday that had $21 in assets, like total assets, which is like it's bonkers because I mean obviously I don't know what they possibly do, but it's also like the completeness that we were aiming for is what we're doing basically. Everything, and we're US focused now because that's we're trying to prove out the pipeline, prove out the kind of the business that we can manage everything. And make it very scalable without being, we have a very small team at the moment. I never really want a very large team. I think we can do a lot with kind of minimal, I like constraints. So we just seem to produce good stuff. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like in a nutshell, why we're doing what we're doing and really why, like how we got here, but also why it should even exist. I still just don't understand why it doesn't. It's Data Bento and Christina as like a they're very, their market data. We're like, I think our pitch is actually we're not market data, which is amusing in that we're kind of the opposite. But that level of like caring about doing it right and
Mhm.
really making it easy to use is what we've been trying to build. So, and right now we're all US regulatory data. So again, we're hoping not to have to do too much licensing in the future because we really like that stuff is pretty solved and sort of solved, right? There are other vendors,
Yeah.
and we think we can add more value not doing that. And the other trick to this, to me, is back to the open source. There are a whole bunch of people who will never pay for data,
Mhm.
and if I had to license it, I can't make that available. So research suffers, like people can't publish things very easily. You have to sit, at a very nice institution to have all of the data, or you've got, crisp through 2001 and they stop buying it after that or something like that. So we're trying to, because I have a lot of whatever touch points inside of academia as well, to try and push, not for I guess a lot of companies like Bloomberg will set up terminals inside of a university, but it's not for that purpose. It's not to be like, hey, now you know how to use the QUANTkiosk stuff. It's more like it really should just be the world is better with free stuff. Like if we didn't have open source, I don't know where we would be. So it's more like how do we keep this thing alive in like the global sense?
Yeah.
And also, I like making stuff. So
So how are you guys monetizing? Because I understand I've always been somewhat against open source, which kind of seems odd. But I
yeah,
started I started on the big banks, right? I was the big banker. We had access to SaaS, which I hated when started academia in R, loved R. Everything was
okay,
vectors, amazing. Moved into
yep,
SaaS, everything was vectors. But I loved the completeness of SaaS because it had great documentation. We had
yep,
great support, right? We were programming something out. I had a question. I didn't have to pull the textbook out too much. We'd have to just call SaaS up, get the support from it. And then when Python came out, it just frustrated me. It's not vector based. It's the language that's mediocre at everything, but not great at anything. And then I always wanted to go back to R, but I always found that challenge of how do you get quality in the open source piece? And then also to your
yep,
point, right? How do you create a business on it? Because if you build out the world's best package, you get nothing for it. I mean, you get some network
yes,
contacts and everything. So how have
yeah.
you gone about kind of the profitability piece on this of how do you guys make money with the data part of this?
Yeah, so the QK model is really like it's the intention, and this is a little, we're very early in the release of this, so we just kind of announced it a couple months ago.
Okay.
And the intention, and nothing ever works as planned, I guess, was to really just have this kind of self-serve client come about. So again, it would allude to like Data Bento's model of, pull out a credit card, buy the data you want to explore, and it's cheap. You don't have to go get a 2 year, $30,000 a year upfront license from Bloomberg to get maybe not even great data.
Okay.
And so the idea would be you can buy because we have very minimal costs. Like I mean, costs obviously we had to build it, but marginal costs we have pretty low marginal cost. And I've worked very hard on the distribution system, so it's meant to be scalable without incurring a lot of cost on our side. And so the idea would be let people buy the data for lower dollars, right? I mean, in the competitive realm of like, there are a bunch of other companies, again, that appeared in the last decade or half decade. From everyone's from like Alpha Vantage to, Tingo, all of those kind of companies that provide pretty good data. But it's almost all of them. And this is like universal in my head. And this is from buying data on a desk to using data on a desk. Like, almost no data products are built by people who use the data.
Mhm.
And it is just a shocking, it's not shocking when you think about it really, if you like spend any moment to just like go through the motions. And people, that's the one thing people ask me a decent amount is like why not too many people jump from like I could go just do another hedge fund. But I also intentionally left. I don't know, it's kind of a rarity in the hedge fund world too. But so I wasn't going to go right back no matter what. I had to just try this. But but the fact that like when I sit down, so sorry, when we announced this, it was supposed to be people sign up the credit card, buy the data, we kind of just prove out the infrastructure, make sure it's all working, make sure and then we can expand from like the core products we have
Yeah.
to like featureful. And we have actually a lot of the featureful ones, but we're again just trying to do it in a cadenced way that's like good for us to get good at and also figure out, how the marketing, all the stuff that has nothing to do with data, but is pretty critical to the business. So those pieces we're thinking of, and we thought the lowest lift was, bake it into QuantMod, make it another option in QuantMod, where we have, again, you can never really know, but we might have like 1 million users that are pretty active on the tool. And it's just another backend that would fit right in. And coincidentally, or maybe less coincidentally, uh, the open world of data, like Yahoo data, all the stuff that you could just throw together and they put together some, first cut of an idea,
Mhm.
which is shockingly done inside of even the biggest hedge funds, right? Just like the number of times I've seen somebody look up something on Yahoo is just like, wait, this is bonkers. Like, and I've done a bunch of consulting for other shops. So like it's universal. It's just like I just see it kind of everywhere. It's like that's crazy. Like I don't trust, I mean, I kind of trust Yahoo, but it is a good thing. If I had infinite resources, I would probably not use it as much. Yeah, it's just, it's helpful to have access to data that instead of going through a vendor or spending forever to get the contract or, vet out the data, because it's also very expensive, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kind, it's kind of insane, all the pieces. And then you talk to the people who are producing it, and I always love the conversations that when somebody come and pitch us stuff in that, like, you could sense they had no idea what they were selling. Like they just found data. It's like, hey, look, we can sell this. And that, I mean, maybe it helps, but you're never going to tell them anyway, right? And if the data is crummy and you could fix it, you're never going to tell them it's crummy. And they're always kind of one step behind the actual smart money, if you will. And so our take was we know how to use it and we know the things that you care about and the things you don't care about. Like we don't want cover it. I could argue we have 15,000 US names in fundamental space, but I can also show you that one of them has $21 in the bank. It's like that
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right? I can throw out all these dumb numbers. So like that and the correctness, point in time, I still am so amused that vendors can't figure out point in time. I mean, they finally have figured it out ish, but it's not. Yeah, it's just wild. It's like some of the things I remember stuff coming to us on, FTP where it's overwritten. It's like every 15 minutes they'd overwrite it. It's like, why would you do that? So yeah, it's
What do you think the big disconnect is? I always find this, to your point, even with other vendor products, especially those that sell in the quant space, you end up with people that are in very different areas creating quant products, whether it's data, modeling software, all kinds of solutions, and then they even models. Like they'll have a model, it's a signal, and you look at it and you're like, well, obviously it's not going to work. Do you have any
yeah.
idea of why there's such a disconnect? I always think it's odd that you have outsiders building products for the industry, But there's very few people like you that it's like I've been in the industry and then I went and built a product that we would use.
Yeah, that's and it's not just like you and I thinking this, because the what happened after we opened this up was literally within minutes, I got like private messages saying from very, very large funds saying, not even people I knew, like some of them were people I had known somewhere in the past, but a bunch of them that I did not know who were very important people saying, hey, we'd love to talk. And which apparently doesn't happen in the vendor space. Like that's not a normal thing. It's usually vendors are
Mhm.
pinging data buyers. Um, and frankly, that was one of the things we'd have to do over the next year was figure out how to even go about selling to institutions. But it was weirdly that institutions were like reaching out kind of immediately. And I think it was that thing. I probably knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And then you go and talk to them and you could kind of sense this. They're kind of on board for whatever I'm going to show them. Like there, it is an interesting idea, but I don't know. I don't totally know, obviously, but my suspicion is if you look at like the startup world, this always blows my mind. As a person who, if I had the time, I would start, I don't know, four businesses a day, possibly. I don't know. There's so many things that are broken
Yes. Yeah.
that I I feel like, oh, why can't this work? So to me, like having an idea was never a limiting factor. It was either, I'm naive on something or it's probably a dumb idea, a bunch of them, but it was never having an idea. But if you look in the startup space, there's so many people who say, I want to start a company, but I don't have an idea, which just like literally blows my mind. I don't understand how you could like what kind of life I would have to live where everything was good, like where everything worked for me. I have no idea. I don't know if you don't push on things or yeah, it's just crazy to me. And maybe it's just because I like to fix things or, I'll go, yeah, instead of calling somebody to fix my oven, like, yeah, let's take a 1 minute video on YouTube and I order the part and I'll fix it. Or, yeah, it's like just, I don't know, I get satisfaction in doing that.
Yeah.
And, uh, and I like mechanical things. Again, never being trained per se, but I think there's a bunch of people who start companies who just want to start a company, and that is a total skill. So like people do pull that off very well, clearly, and they have nothing, no knowledge. But I think there's also a whole bunch of engineers, like especially in computer side that or software side that will, yeah, it's like and data with the data science explosion, where I predate the data science term. So like the data science explosion was, it created a whole bunch of people who were pretty good at data and pretty good at, messing around with data. And then was this thinking of like, what, I don't know, what could I sell? Or the space looks big, or quant people like to spend a lot of money. I mean, that's a big deal, right? People,
Yes.
for
Yeah.
some reason, the lure is like a lottery ticket. You're like, if I could make something and like get this guy to buy it for $1 million, it's like, yeah, you could, but it's garbage that you're selling. So I don't think they're going to buy it, but go ahead. And then I think that's what you see. So our business is like the least interesting to anyone on the outside, I think. But what's so weird is like, I think because we do it well, it is interesting to the people who care. And so I don't know. It's funny. Like I am only interested in making the stuff as good as, better than anything effectively is our goal.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue we're there by any stretch now, but there are definitely pieces that we just have, I think, nailed way better, either in, timeliness or completeness or correctness that is better than any other. Even, like I mean, some of these companies are $20 billion companies. I mean, S&P is a
Yes.
100+ billion dollar company, but this stuff is just kind of not that good. So
Yeah. You're surprisingly a real founder. So being in finance, the eye-opening piece has been all the fake founders. So I'm going to call them. It's the people that they build a business to sell a business. It's kind of people that
yeah,
say, I need an idea to make a business to sell a business. And it reminds me of the AI space right now
yeah,
because you have the same thing, right? I can do AI. I have software engineering down. I'm going to make a product. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to sell the business. And then I'm going to start another business to sell that business.
yeah,
It always blows my mind. I'm like, I don't know how you build something quality unless your heart and soul is into like, I have, like you, I have a problem. I know the problem well. Let's find an actual solution to solve the problem. And then people want that
yeah.
problem solved.
And once and for all, this is actually almost more to me is I never want to solve this again. That's actually a giant function. Like if I ever did go, like if we go and start a fund at some point, or if I go join a fund at some point in the future, like, it's like 10 years from now, or, maybe I don't ever envision selling the company. So like none of this makes any sense. But like in some fantasy land where you're like, I don't know, maybe I'll get bored on the boat and running it remotely and whatever, I don't know, some dumb thing where it's like, I, if I was ever in the position where I had to buy data, I would never want to not buy what we have. Like it's one of those like I can't see like I hope I never have to write it again. Like that's the
Yeah.
and this actually is with the time series that I wrote in R was so I wrote the XDS package in R and that I wrote to never have to touch again. And it's because like it was just too, and there were a bunch of other versions, like not just ours, but like I think there were nine of them, nine time series packages at the beginning, not even the
Okay.
beginning, sorry. But the core, since you're an R guy, the core of R was there's no time series person in R core.
Mhm.
So the only time series, the TS class in R was it's like monthly cadence, right? I mean, it's just a hard, it's not,
Yeah, it's
it's
not
not
great to
really.
use.
Yeah. So, and then Zoo, Akeem wrote Zoo, and Zoo was great, except for it was so brilliantly done that Akeem wrote it and Gabor wrote it to be totally like time stamp or ordered, Xylus is ordered observation. So it's nothing to do with time. It just happens to be time is also potentially ordered. But his
Yeah.
package is so awesome. So I'm a co-author or whatever, technically a co-author of that because I've written some of the code. But the coolest part of that is like I went to Vienna. They invited me to go out to Vienna, which is like the home of R, not the origin of R, but the home of R. It was the coolest thing in the world. Like it was like 2009, and it was so cool. I mean, it was just giddy for me to go. And but I got to work with Akim for like a week in at VU, and Kurt Hornick, the guy who created Cran. So it was like all of these like this is surreal, pinch yourself kind of every day when I walk over to the little office. And but it was super cool. But he's so brilliant in that the ordering it's like you can write your own ordering function. So it was so generic and so brilliantly executed that like one could come after three and five could come after one. It was like totally you could do whatever you wanted if you built the function that said like this is the order. And
Yeah.
I guess it sense in some domain, but my head is always timestamp domain. So like that never made any sense to me. But also it meant that like to be general, it couldn't do things, when you get at least some specificity, you can, or a constraint again on like what it can do, you can go and build like really hyper performance like levels. You don't need to do all of these if-then tests. So if you look at like the source code for XTS, which is all C, like ANSI 89C, it's hyper, everything's unrolled, everything is like super compiler. I mean, no, it's a little old at this point, so like all the new CPU stuff is not quite baked in there yet.
Mhm.
But but the idea was like, man, if we just do this once, like how hard can this be? Which is which is always an unfortunate aspect of everything I say is always that. And then months later, it's like it turns out it's harder. But he did, but we ended up, and it's cool because like we still have like some of the fastest software out there. And like Wes, when he wrote it, is funny. Wes tried to one up XTS for pandas.
Okay.
And he at the beginning, and this is the internet, you can go find it, but like at the beginning, and we're friends, but he had asked, hey, everyone told me if I'm gonna make a time series version, like go talk to you and do it like XTS. Maybe not talk to me, but like say do it like XTS. So he did, and he asked how to benchmark things in R because I guess he wasn't super familiar. I thought he was familiar with R, frankly, but he wasn't super familiar. So, but he didn't tell me really what he was benchmarking. And like, and as you know, it's like you can, depending on what you're benchmarking, you might think about breaking it up in a different way. Like there might be overhead in one part, and that's not really what you want to test. Like, benchmarks are just kind of a joke anyway. So I gave him like the way I would do it for what I thought he was asking. And then he published this like, haha, it's better than XDS. And and then I looked at it, I was like, oh no, it's like it's not actually. It's like You, you didn't ask me the question about the benchmark to do the way, like if you told me what you were doing, I would have told you how to do the benchmark. So maybe you could have been faster, but it's like the way you wrote it now, it's just not. You actually like you're getting all this weird garbage collector stuff because you're running it 4,000 times over. It's like let's take this part out and do it that way. And then it was like, they were the same. It's like you can't. It's the same as like KDB. It's like you can't make things faster if you're at the lowest level.
Hmm.
So XTS is just a wrapper, and that's where we're trying to do with with this QK stuff is that I don't. You shouldn't have to do all of that lift. Like when you buy data, like fundamentals data still blows my mind, but when you get it from a big vendor and they make you set up a large database and you have to join across n number of tables that sometimes have the same exact column names, but you have to know the schema,
Yeah.
like that's not a quant. No quant wants to do that. No quant really can do that. And then you can sadly, but it takes a while and it's total waste. And I, yeah, like the point in time stuff too, because like if you dig into filings, sorry, this is like nuance that maybe you can just delete, but like the nuance of filings are so funny in that there's context in them. So you might have a net income number that's repeated 12 times. It's a different number because it's different periods of time or different, it's like a different segment that they operate in, say APAC net income or something like that. And that like on some of these very large platforms, if you ask for net income and you don't understand, you get all of them for that same exact day. And it's like, well, that's totally not helpful at all. And it's even worse if you don't notice. Like if they're close,
Yeah.
then you're kind of screwed, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, and that's just the top level stuff. But yeah, so it's a mess. I never want to do it again. Like I
I
can't.
have spent more time working with data teams than I ever thought I would. You go through the process, you get your quant job. I'm going to be doing model development. And I think one of the big surprises is you spend so much time doing data tasks. And so I've had
Yeah.
to sit down with like data quality teams, and I'm like, all right, to your point, right, these are multiple tables. These columns are all named the same. And they're like, well, yeah, yeah, but you should know in the schema that this one has this definition in this other
Yeah.
table. And you're scratching your head like, I've got a team of, 5, 10, 15 people under me. Like, I'm not going to be able to go to each individual employee and make like this list out like, hey, you pulled net income or, some sort of like GDP, but it's different variations all put together in the same
Yeah.
table. But yeah, data is one of those things. It's frustrating. I just want to do it to your point one time, set
Yeah.
the
And never.
standards, and then we can all move on.
Yeah, this is why, I mean, we're also, and this sounds so, every time I say this stuff out loud, it sounds dumb. But like security masters are also a giant problem, right? I mean, it's hard. It's like universally, it's a very hard problem. And it's kind of almost an impossible problem, I would argue. But like you can get closer. And I think like one of the most important parts of a firm, like a proper hedge fund, is getting that right. And you can't, I mean, you can buy them, but you can't really buy what they're just always some different subset of what you care about, or you care about something else. So you have to extend it. Like, so you're always like integrating. And then it's even worse on the vendor side because the way like S&P buys, LSEG, I just looked up, LSEG has something like 450 subsidiaries, like active subsidiaries of all the things they bought over all the years. And it's
Okay.
like, and they all have their own symbology. It's just like, could somebody not sit down and do this? And if you just deal with, because you don't deal with the person who made it. In fact, the person who made it is long gone, right? Like they were bought out and they're gone. So
Yep.
like nobody knows. And so you're stuck building it yourself anyway. So we thought, again, back to the open source. We don't have, I mean, we would like PK to be like powering lots of things because I mean, we looked at my co-founder is actually funny in that he was kind of, we always QA things. So we have like a very rigorous, everything's algo driven, but like the process of you can't just there's no, especially in fundamentals, put in all the regulatory filings or anything that's public. There's no, I mean, just look at the revisions on the numbers recently.
Hmm.
Like there are no, they're all made up, right? I mean, I won't say they're really made up, but they're kind of made up. So there's no absolute, right? There's no ground truth to EPS number. It's like, I don't know. It's like, it's something, but I can definitely say it's the thing they reported, right? That I can be sure of.
Yeah.
But that's fine, except for there are like in current US gap space, there's something like I can't remember what that number is, not or gap, non-gap. We have something like 800,000 different concepts that are mappable.
Okay.
across, 10,000 companies or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's and they change through time. It's like so building something that says this is definitively, how you test that is kind of impossible. So I mean, it is impossible. I'm not a giant, shouldn't say this out loud, but I'm not the biggest like test case fan just because there's no like if you do anything enough, you realize you're never going to guess
Yep.
the thing that's actually going to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
So that's where open source is so brilliant is that with and I learned this a long time ago. Like you can go look, I give the talks I give have boiled down to like almost old man style talks where I just yell at people. But the I did one in New York for Jared. I don't know if you've ever been to Jared Lander's
Mm.
conference. So he does his R. It's now bigger than R, but it's like a stats conference every year. He does a bunch of them actually, but absolutely great conference. Single track. He modeled it at the beginning off of ours that we did because it was just enjoyable to be there. It's like and it's a low enough lift when you run the conference too. It's like and conference to me, I hate when I miss, there could be like a whole swath of the day where nothing is interesting.
Yeah.
And then the four things all happen in four different rooms. And you're like, I can't see any of these. So single track was like, A, we're lazy. So that was a good band. It's like we don't need to do anything. We had one room and it was like, it worked out well. But what was I gonna say? Oh no, I gave a talk there and my talk, I gave it while I was at Citadel. So it had to be very, pre-approved and like, sanitized in every possible way, even though all I was
Yep.
talking about was a decade. It's titled something like a decade of uh, either open source community or finance community, or maybe a decade of community or something like that. And it was basically me talking about how we went from there was this little conference, like which I need to make like a post of because it's never been circulated too well. But there was a conference that started all of this really. It was in Miley's, well, it was running Miley's help just outside of Interlaken in Switzerland,
Okay.
by this guy named Dieter Wirtz, who wrote. You may have been familiar with like the R metrics suites
Hmm.
or suite
Yeah.
package.
Yeah.
So he created all of that,
Okay.
and he invited me to go out and he had built, he kind of had everything. One of my time series stuff was competing directly with his stuff. But he invited me out. Like he actually paid for me to go to his conference. It was for 4 days in the Alps. This is like 2008 or something. And it's 4 days in the Alps in the summer and it was just 50-ish people and it was a third practitioners, a third academics, and a third students, like by construction. This is that he
Okay.
decided that's what it's going to be. He was a professor at ETH Zurich, and he so but you go there and it's like you don't really know anyone. Obviously it's people from around the world. It's not a very big thing, so the odds of bumping into people, but they were all the people you knew of. Like it was, with the exception of maybe the students, but like
Yeah.
but you knew of these people because they were people who wanted to be there. It wasn't like there's no marketing, there's no anything. It was like invite only. I'm not invite, but like he, it was good enough to be invite. Like it was, you needed to know enough about it to be even knowing that it was there. He wasn't publishing it.
Yeah.
Um, but it was such a good like grounding for how this like community felt, like where you get to I was like, I remember sitting, and these are people that I've either like worked on companies with, worked on, trading with over the years. Like, so 17 years later, there's now like 4 or 5 conferences around the world that basically replicated what we did at the finance conference and took it into insurance, into medicine, like it's like the same structure. And it was all based on his conference. Like that I came back from Switzerland saying we should do one of these here, and we'll never do the same thing because we don't have quite the same scenery or cows. But they it but it was such a cool event that I mean it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You were stuck in this little hotel on the side of a mountain. You could not go anywhere, and you were just there. So they had a little mini golf course out front, and I guess you could go hiking if you wanted. But for the most part, you had lots of dairy and and it was just great. It was just like such, you'd be up with this honor bar thing at 3 in the morning talking to people who wrote the books that are sitting on your shelf, and you're just like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And that's what we tried to do in Chicago when we put our conference together. And then it grew tremendously kind of in the first couple of years, and then COVID kind of wrecked a lot of people showing up, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Um, and we never wanted to be a virtual. But like that whole notion of like community was so embedded in my head that the software was being used. If I changed something like overnight or my co-author would be like, "Hey, I think we could change this argument." It's like it's gonna break something. It's like it doesn't seem like it's gonna break anything, but it might break something. And then sure enough, 3 hours later, there's like 15 emails in your inbox for just like some people you've never heard of, and they're like, "It seems to break now." It's like, so yeah, we're still early in QK, but I'm 100%. I will be annoyed if I ever break anything. So
Yeah.
we'll try very hard not to. Certainly early on, but we'll never really break stuff. So, but yeah, it's that like, oh, sorry, the reason I was even saying that, rambling on, was the community side. If the one thing that I feel like, well, no one wants to build, literally no one on earth wants to build a security master, best I can tell.
Mhm.
And that seems to be amenable to a community effort in some way, right? Even if it's just the QA part. And making that sort of the linchpin of what we do with our own ID, which is not really a brand new ID, it's actually a combination of like the public IDs. Like Figgy is kind of the anchor on the security side.
Okay.
But the intention is like to make that the centerpiece of because we have to link together more than just securities. Like we have to link together entities. We have to do all of the stuff, and that's just not something you can kind of go get off the shelf anyway. But if we had to pay for it, or if we did pay for it, we wouldn't be able to distribute it in the same way. So all of these pieces are like, we're stuck building it ourselves, I guess.
Do you,
So
do you think it's the competition between the firms? I mean, finance is very competitive that kind of prevents that community effort. Because to your point
yeah,
too, I find like, as you mentioned, we have the same problem at every place, and we
yeah,
often engineer and rewrite the code at every job you go to, and it
yes.
seems like we're just repeating this. But I think it's got to be that competition that prevents the process. Everyone thinks maybe there's a slight edge in it, but I feel like it's often the long, tedious task that doesn't give you much edge. But we
Yep.
all seem to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I think it is a barrier to entry at the very least. So, I mean, maybe there is really edge there, and
Okay.
there's definitely. It's funny. Like, I almost feel like it's table stakes edge. Like, there's no real, it's not really edge, but it's like the ability to have a good reputation to attract talent to your firm is huge, right? That's hard to replicate. Like if you don't have a name as your firm or you're not well respected, like good luck. Whereas, the number of people I interviewed from the best people in the world at Citadel was just bonkers. Again, like somebody who they would have not approached me personally, but like at that is so wild. Like they just have a pick of anyone they want. I mean, literally anyone they want. And if the person doesn't want to go there, they'll just pay them even more. Like it's kind of impossible to compete with, right? I mean, it is
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely.
so yeah, the best you can do then is like, yeah. But I think the security master thing is the every firm builds them. They're all pretty crummy, even at the very best. I mean, one of the day one before we even launched this, I had posted like to keep myself honest sometime last year or the end of 2023, I guess. Um, I posted a like what I'm going to be doing next year type thing on LinkedIn, which I kind of hate LinkedIn to be honest, but it was one of those. Yeah, I feel bad about that post, but it's the exact thing I don't like. But either way, it had pretty good traction. It was fun. And it was nice for me to just say and connect with people. So I like that part. Just with that post, I mentioned, like, alluded to this fact that we have to we're building everything from scratch. Like, basically, we built what is like the internals of a fund. I mean, we had to build everything right now. So we're not there yet. And we've avoided the, market data because there are good solutions for that we
Yeah.
don't need to touch. And we'll have to have something on the platform, but just for the sake of completeness but it definitely won't be good. We'll definitely be pointing to other vendors for that. It's just something we don't want to touch. Um, but but I remember like day zero after I posted this, a friend who I knew from other things, again, been in the space for a while, he reached out and he was at a like, $50 billion kind of fund saying, oh man, our security master is horrible. Like, you think we could talk? It's like that's just insane. Like that just doesn't even make sense that you like, it also makes you feel a little bit better that you're, as tough as it is for yourself, you're like, well, it turns out, yeah, it's like it doesn't matter the resources you have. It's just a hard problem.
Yeah.
But it's also a problem none of us should solve. Like, I mean, we can make our own electricity, I guess, too, but like, is that really? I just, it's weird. They're kind of table stakes. Like they should be taken as table stakes to me. But I also think I don't know if people trust other security masters. Like I'm sure people won't trust ours, right? So which is why open source is so cool in that you can make people, it's available. You can see it. You can see
Yeah.
how it's built. And so we use Figgy as the base, or one of the bases, but like but it's the base, it's the right-hand side of the identifier. Um, and that is a very good, it's a great platform that Bloomberg did such a brilliant job of, like, I think they were just sick of it, right? They were sick of paying QSIP for, it's like, we're Bloomberg. I'm sure the conversation was like, we shouldn't have to pay anybody. This is idiotic. So they're like, so they made it free, and it's so great. But it's also it's not, you can't resurrect like metadata point in time. It's gone. They just clobber it in the most mind-boggling way. But it also, I think Bloomberg's such a different business in that their business is not quant, right? They don't care about the guy looking at the screens doesn't care anything. If it's showing him what was right yesterday, it's wrong today, right? Like it's that's not what he wants to see.
Yeah.
Um, which is the way I think a lot of vendors think too. It's like, well, I just made it better. It's like you didn't make it better. You actually you made it worse. I mean, your back test will look great now, but like, yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be yeah, you're gonna be looking for a job later. But yeah, so I don't know. I think what we're trying to do is since their intention is to own everything from the base up
Mhm.
and be able to, so then we can build different things on top of it without having to worry about weird renegotiations, a license or like platform risk, right? Like very
Yeah.
real startup space thing, platform risk. I'm not going to build on Shopify, like that's a bad idea. Um, but at least long-term bad idea, good idea first term. But like building something so central, which is so central to trading
Yeah.
and stitching together anything across, like for whomever, even if it's not investing per se, it's like, anything from legal side, like having the ability to go stitch things together is just not, it's not solved at all. I mean, and I think finance is the closest to solving it. And there it's just a disaster, right? It's like, it's kind of,
Yes.
I don't, my son is in college and he's studying aerospace engineering, and it's so fun to watch because he's very smart and he very much he wants to build like supersonic stuff, and but like there are real answers there. And it's like I mean, they're hard. They're not easy answers to get, but at the very least, they're like testable ones. But back to like the security master, it's like I don't really know. It's like I've got like 70,000 instruments, or actually I've got millions, but like 70,000 we're trying to curate.
Yeah.
And even doing that is hard, right? And it's like, especially when it's a dumb little company that nobody really cares about and it just doesn't pop up on people's radar. But somewhere, I'm hoping to merge this like hard problem that's actually useful with the enthusiasm. This is not true. This won't really happen, but with the enthusiasm of like the Simpsons Wikipedia page, where it's like, good luck changing anything on that page without it being changed back. Like,
Yeah.
so
Keep it honest and keep it exactly where
yeah.
we need it.
Yeah. Yeah, which also, I mean, there is like there will be bad actors, I suspect, who will be changing, the perturbing the digits of Tesla's XYZ, but it's like but because again, we've got all of this data and we can sort of use it as a currency to make our data better,
Yeah.
and having to pay for it. That's kind of our, internal model. We have some of that external at this moment, but not really. It will be at some point, but that's,
Yeah. Down the road.
a couple of steps away. Yeah.
Have you always had the desire to build things, like even as a kid? Has it always just kind of been like that drive that you enjoy kind of putting things together and fixing it and
Yeah, I think so. I used to, so when I think prior we had just chatted or earlier, maybe off of this call, but my path is a little weird, because I was my last, my job before Citadel, like the last job I had, like what somebody actually paid me,
yeah.
as opposed to like clients paying me, because I did consulting for a long time, like on my own. Sorry, because my name became like recognizable, that people who were building, I built the interface to interact with brokers. So like a lot of small shops, prop firms, like high net worth people use that as a platform,
Yeah.
and I think it's a great platform. So I've been friends with those IB for a long time. But and people still, they on their quant blog still publishes stuff around the iBrokers package I wrote in R, which is still like updated and everything. So it's pretty neat. So yeah, the last job I had prior to that was I was a bicycle mechanic. like a full-time bicycle mechanic.
Okay.
So yeah, I like doing. I've had a billion different jobs, but so I'm not. I took a tiny break after high school, and then when I went back to school, it was like head down kind of. Okay, I'm gonna do this right now that I used to do like freestyle BMX and like I was kind of goofy. So and in that case, like I was also not super well off, like definitely not wealthy by even modicum of that word. So it was very much like fix it, right? Yeah, I fixed my car, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I'm pretty sure I could fix I'm pretty sure I could fix a water pump on a mid 80s Dodge faster than any mechanic, certainly to this day. Uh, so
I
yeah.
gotcha. I grew up racing motocross. And so
Okay.
I had a couple bikes, but it was always like the bike broke. So my parents were like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, I can't afford to pay a mechanic. So then you're trying to figure out, like, all right, if I mow X amount of lawns, I can get the $120 for the top end rebuild kit. And then I got to tear
Yeah.
it down on Friday night before the race to get to the track. So
Yeah.
I'm well aware. I think it's something that's just built kind of into you because I don't know if it's I've always debated, is it kind of that learning process? Like, was I just mechanical because I had a hobby and I needed to be the mechanic and so you kind of figure it out? Or is it just like something that's kind of genetically derived? Because I've realized kind of this point, like I've been through big companies, I've been through small companies, but I've come to the conclusion I just want to build stuff. Like I want to solve an actual problem. And to your point, like I don't want to be the guy that's like moving the paperwork from the left side to the right side. And I get it has value, but it's like I always
Yep.
want to
Yep.
like find the problem, fix the problem, and then move to the next problem kind of
Yep.
mentality with it.
Yeah, that's been just the struggle in that is that it's cool because the consulting side is neat in that, and I still do some advisory work, less like hands-on, code kind of advisory, but like the sort of, a little more of the from the experience of doing all of that, understanding the current environment because we are building out a whole ton of stuff on the data side. I also built, I don't know if I built a scheduler because that was one of those things that just annoyed the heck out of me. And it's so dumb. I do dumb things, I think. But the so I built it because I when we started the data business in earnest, again, it was you have to run a ton of jobs, right? Like there are things overnight from downloads to extractions to everything you'd think of, mappings, all that stuff, and none of it's done. Like there's nobody, as much as I was like, oh, we should just use the risk model. Oh, we don't have a risk model. So it's like, well, I'll see what industry this belongs. Oh, I don't have a Gix. I don't, yeah, all that stuff. We were just like, darn it, I don't have any of this. But the one thing that was like a super bottleneck was this scheduler where I needed to run things. And for the longest time, I was running even just like regular downloads with, um, with cron because cron's pretty straightforward. It's dumb and easy, but I don't have to set up like a cluster to run. Like Airflow just blew my mind it was like the amount of lift to make an Airflow cluster was just so dumb. I was like, and I realized it comes from like a Hadoopish era, but I'm also not Airbnb. I don't know. It was not my problem.
Yeah.
So it was just overkill. And then it was overkill because like, why would I need and then there's other ones like prefect in Python. There's a bunch of, yeah, I mean, there's a million, right? So, but prefect also blew my mind because why would I write Python to run R code or Go? I write most of our infra is in Golang.
Okay.
Um, Go is a really, I don't know if you've played around with Go or you write that kind of code, but like Go is a great language. It's statically typed and it is statically compiled. So
Right.
it's super fast compilation time. It's very smart in compilation. So Go is written by Google. And they used it for all of their, well, I don't really know what they used it for, but the pitch was they used it in the server side infrastructure. So it's kind of very, very batteries included, very prescriptive in it's all like it's got a formatting function, so it kind of lints it or formats it nicely. And you don't have to worry about any of that. But also it's very high performance. It's like it's not I can write very fast C code for things
Mhm.
that I'm going to reuse for the rest of my life, and I do that. But for things that I'm not, or they're like a one-off kind of thing that needs to be fast but not super fast, even if it is super fast still. So like a lot of our parsers are, we have hundreds of different parsers or normalizer kind of things, and they're all written in Go. And it's just because
Okay.
like it's very easy to write. I if I once it's compiled, I could just put it on any machine, any like properly architected machine, and it doesn't matter. Like, doesn't matter what else is installed on there. It's like a little Docker container, plus or minus.
Okay.
So it runs everywhere, and it's bulletproof. It's very fault tolerant. Like, it can panic and not die. It can do. It's just pretty amazing. Plus, being, I mean, it's fast because it is statically typed, but it also just makes it like you do it once. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's perfect, but it's pretty good. And it's way better. Like, to me, it's way better than Python because it's just as easy to write, like as easy. And I've been writing it for a while, but I literally, when I first tried it out, it was because I really wanted to I felt like I was getting dumber too, by the way, at when I was working at Citadel. Not because it was dumb to be there, but
Yeah.
it's just like you can't be right? You've got a business problem. So like you can't be challenging yourself like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. Like you can, but also like kind of hard. But I thought, man, it's like I should learn something because I do feel like my world is getting smaller and like there are people who talk about that, I interview people all the time and it's like, it seems like you know more than me now. It's like this is not cool. So I thought Go would be a fun push on my brain kind of thing.
Okay.
And I ended up with we made a little like kind of Instagram for art, like a location-based Instagram for art, myself and co-founder, just as a side project. It was like, I wonder if we could do, I want to learn Go, which picks some, I can't learn anything without a project. So
Yeah.
I did that. And within like a weekend, this thing was working. It was just bonkers. It was like so, and it still runs. Like I could run it now. Like it's on different machines. Like it's on like an old laptop. It still will run. Um, it's so Go became a very big thing. And then I was like, how am I going to run a Go process from Python? Like, am I like sub process out? It's like this is dumb. And then Python's like,
Hmm.
do I run it in Conda? Do I run it with like, it's like all this chaos of this is dumb. I wrote this to not have this problem. So my answer was, oh, I'll write another piece of software to solve. So I wrote this scheduler it's called Repeat, RPEAT.io now. It's a real product. Although I don't sell it. At the bottom of the page, you could like technically buy something, but you can't actually click through. So, but it's free. It's free. It's open source. It's AGPL. It's dual license. So if you like don't like AGPL, I will license it off in, whether if it's a firm I don't like, I'll charge them. If it's a firm I do like, I won't charge them. Like
Yeah.
the whole goal was like I have flexibility and I didn't want to get screwed by, like in the world of open source, the Amazons of the world have pretty, hard take of Redis or Mongo or, there's a bunch of companies out there that have been kind of you end up competing with yourself. So it's one of those like I'm not going to compete with myself. AGPL is enough of a poison pill to stop that. Um, from a distribution standpoint. So that's why it's dual license. But anyway, it's basically cron that I was sick of my failing jobs being written to dev null. I don't know where they went. I would never figure out where the logs went. They were just gone in cron. And
Yeah.
like so couldn't that was not tolerable. Like after two things that I was running, it became okay, I need visibility. And then so I built it with like permissions in mind and like it does everything now. It's kind of silly in terms of like why I built it so feature full.
Yeah.
But actually there are other I mean there are real funds using this now, which is kind of amazing in that regard because I mean we built it for us and we built it for our fund infrastructure. And it works really well but it's wasn't I was hoping other people would use it so they give me hints on hey this stinks or maybe you could add this and that's happened so it's pretty neat. It's currently not in a public repo because every time I put it there I feel like sort of ashamed by the Go code that I wrote on it so like because I'm not like that unfortunately happened like before I used to be like whatever it's good code and now it's like I mean it is pretty good code but I still feel like some Go person's gonna yell at me. So
Yeah. Not the proper format, not the proper
yeah, correct.
structure.
Yeah, it's like why would you use that? It's like I don't know. It's like it's like it works. Does it work? Yeah, it's like it works. It processes terabytes of data a year. I mean, many terabytes of data a year, and I have terabytes of log files coming from this. And I reboot the server. Never. So I think the last one was up for like 350 days with like, so I do change it occasionally, or one of the processes I change just so I have my newest version of the scheduler. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's just totally bulletproof. It's just completely bulletproof. It's running everything all of the time, zero like resource utilization. I don't, it's one binary. You could just literally you could download it on your Mac or your or even a Windows machine or run it in that Windows, the Linux subshell thing.
Yeah.
Works. It's got a GUI. It's
Oh,
really,
nice.
yeah. I was made fun of for the GUI because the GUI looked really bad originally, and one of my good friends was like, "Nobody's going to believe this."
Let me
So I
rebuild it.
did. So yeah, I wasted like weeks making it pretty. But it also then helped because then people are like, "Wow, that's really cool." It's like, yeah, it's like it's just CSS apparently, but it's nonetheless it works. So yeah, I don't know. So I end up building things not because I really want to, but because like they're just unsolved. Everything seems to be unsolved. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, there's always a list of problems.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe it's that. It's that we live. Yeah, it's maybe like first world problems, right? Where it's like we get to the point where I remember, I remember one time I talking with some other quants that I worked with that we were in like the lunch area and they were complaining about the like it was either the seat warmer in their car or something and it was and it was just like and one of my Indian friends was like, let me just stop you guys here. And it wasn't me, but it was one of those like he just like, this is a first world problem. It's like, you are correct. It's like, this is such a silly conversation. So, yeah. I mean,
I get that. We had a friend that was complaining. He goes, "Oh, my parents only bought me this. I don't know what it was, like some fancy high-end Volkswagen and stuff, and I really wanted the BMW." And he's going on, and I just remember sitting there thinking, like, what would it be like to have your parents just buy you a car? I was like,
yeah, it's funny. I have an older daughter now who's driving, and she goes to a private school because like we live in the city and the public schools here, it's like a kind of crapshoot or lottery that if you get into a good one. And
yeah,
so she did, but it was further away. So it's like she went to this other school that my son had gone to. And it's but because it's in the suburbs, so they like, take the train out to the school, and so it's kind of a lift in that regard. But she wants to drive. My son doesn't even have a license; he just doesn't care about driving. And and maybe that's like living in the city is kind of one of those things. But she's like, I need a car, and then but she just drives our car, and because I like to fix things, and it's like I really don't. I like to buy things. I also hate throwing away things. Not because I don't want to throw them away, but I don't want to have to figure out how to get rid of them. Because I have so
uh-huh.
many things where it's just like, I have no idea what we're gonna do with that chair. It's like I don't want the chair, but it's here now. It's
I've
like,
got a driving mower actually sitting outside my shop right now, and it's been there for like 4 months, and everyone's complaining the backyard's like 3 feet of grass, and I had to borrow a neighbor's mower, which I hated to ask. And to your point, I'm like, my wife goes, "Why don't you just get a new mower?" And I'm like, "But I could fix this mower, and I could take the engine out, and I could rebuild it." And I went to rebuild it, and they didn't sell the gasket, so I did a gasket maker and hand cut gaskets and put it all together. And of course, it
yeah,
leaks. And in my head, I'm thinking,
yeah.
even if I want to get a new one, what am I going to do with it? How do I dispose of an entire mower? I'm
It's
like, I might as
crazy.
well just rebuild it. I'll just rebuild it again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I try and buy. I'm very careful about what I buy, and I will try not to get rid of it. That said, I also the only weakness or exception to that rule is computers. I will. I don't tend to. I never upgrade a computer, or very rarely will I upgrade a computer.
Okay.
Usually they will just survive until I can't do things I need to on it, and then I will buy a new one. But I can like my ability to like restore from backup is to just plug in the old machine. That is how generally it works. Because I've wasted so many days, months probably of my life where some update ruins something, right? Breaks. And certainly if you touch like Python or something like that, you are doomed. You will never come back from it. You just won't. I mean, I'm pretty sure you won't.
Yeah, it's I've been working on I have a bunch of books sitting around here like it's like I don't know, this book is Introduction to Financial
Yep.
Derivatives in Python. And I'm like, I'm gonna make a video series. I'm gonna do this. And I need to set up Python, but all of the Python I do in the real world is on, a corporate computer with completely maintained and managed systems.
Yeah.
And
Somebody
on my
else doing it.
personal stuff, I start pulling things up and I'm like, should I run on VS Code for it or should I run on PyCharm? And I'm like, well, I'll install a new one. And then I don't have the interpreter set to the right one. And then I'm like, and to your point, then
Yeah.
I have some code that I wrote 4 years ago or something, and now it doesn't run. And I'm like, should I debug the code or just rewrite the whole thing because it's going to save me more time than kind of screwing around
Yep.
with all that?
Yeah, the laptop I'm using right now, I broke Jupyter notebooks at some point. They're impossible. They do not run anymore. It's like I'll never figure it out. It's just like I don't have the time to figure it out. It's like
Yeah.
just It's just like I'll just get a new computer if need be, or I just won't use Jupyter notebooks. It's fine right now. Like I'm okay with this. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's frustrating. So that's where all if there's one thing that describes everything I do, it's just to try and make things less frustrating, which I don't even know if that helps. Like I don't know if I accomplish this at all because I then see even more of it. It's very hard to tell, but maybe I've made somebody else less unhappy. I don't know. I don't even know.
Keeps you busy at least, right? You always have the new
Yeah,
problems to work on because there's just more problems coming up.
yeah.
So for a final question here on the podcast, what is one tip or piece of advice you would give someone on how do you stay ahead of the curve? Because to your point, I feel that same struggle where I feel like I'm working, I'm in the job, I've got it figured out, and then we interview someone new, and it's like, oh, I didn't realize they were using newer technologies or newer pieces. Even as you're mentioning Go, I'm like, I've heard of Go, I've seen Go, but I've never programmed in Go. And now I'm like, should I take the time to go get a book and figure it out? What advice would you give someone kind of to keep up with, I guess, the new technologies or the new methods as you kind of build out your career?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I again, I would only be able to inform on my personal view, which is like don't, but not really. No, more like the hype thing. I really dislike any hype cycle. Like more, Rust was one. I guess Rust and Go are probably the two that I found to be like at the same time they were both in the narrative. And Rust was newer, and Rust was definitely not as well used. Like if you looked at the projects, and this is maybe like I don't even know, like before 2020, somewhere in that vicinity, where like the projects that were being used for Rust were there were a bunch of cool little ones, and it definitely looked neat. But the general pattern was like Go was built by Google, which I'm not even a big fan of Google to be honest, but like they do the things they do well, so like you can't argue with that. And they're pretty good at least this Go tool. They've maintained it very well. They've proven they will maintain it for years. I mean, I think it's well into its second decade now of being
Okay.
produced. So it's just stable and out there. But yeah, you see like I mean, Rust being one, but all of the AI stuff, everything that comes up. I just saw somebody on LinkedIn say you should always jump on the latest trend and learn it. It's like, I don't know if that's a good, I would go the opposite of that, whatever it is. Can I pick that?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I do think picking up, I think learning something, because really the languages are all kind of fungible, right? I mean, there's like tools, like but you could find every day there's a new database, there's a new everything. It's like there's no way you're going to get good at any of those. Like if you're good at any one thing, you're probably better than like 99.999% of the population. Like learn scripting, bash scripting. You can do everything. It's actually I don't know what I want to give this away, but like I one of these at some point I'm just going to give an interview where you have to pick it'd be like I don't even have a good formulation of this yet, but you would basically be given sort of like on Wheel of Fortune where you could pick the letters
Yeah.
and you're stuck with like guessing it after that. Like in the same way, you get to pick from a set of tools without knowing the problem yet, and then so you have to pick like that way. I could see like do you know enough of like the ecosystem of just tools in general? Like you could use whatever you want. I don't care. But like you get to only pick four or something like that, and then I will surprise you with the problem, and you're stuck with just those tools. So, but yeah, like I like resourcefulness but those kind of things, like if you could, I think base the stuff that's available. I use Vim, so this might also inform who I am. But like I use Vim because literally you can log into anything, right? You can fire up a new Ubuntu instance on AWS, and there's going to be Vim or VI in there. It's just going to work. Like if I used Emacs, that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it'll be even twice as big, but whatever, mocking the Emacs crowd. But which all of my friends are, but nonetheless, which is probably why I mock them. But no, it's like I think the lowest common denominator of the ecosystem is the one that's like they just won't go away, right? It's like I we wrote the entire front end to um, the QK dashboard is in JavaScript, but it's just regular JavaScript, which is surprisingly good. Like really quite good. It's kind of fun to use. But there's no packages, there's no or very little. Like it's mostly, bespoke. And which is done. Like you ask any JavaScript person, they're gonna be like, "Ah, you should use this." It's like, no, I don't think so, because like that's gonna break. And I mean, just yesterday, 2 days ago, there was some security problem with somebody had uploaded to npm, the package repository.
Mhm.
Um, Compiling JavaScript, by the way, that also blows my mind. I don't understand why that's a thing. Like, why? Why? It's like it's it just blows my mind. Yeah, I like the basic stuff that is not, there's no fad to it. And
Mhm.
then, you can use it. So I don't know, stuff that's actually usable. Back to like the fixing your motorcycle, right? It's like once you know how to do anything with your hands, like you're kind of unstoppable, right? It's
Yeah.
just, and you don't get to put it on the resume, maybe, or maybe you could. I mean, like, I mean, you could put that on the resume, right? Like, you can say maybe not the motorcycle thing, although I would too. But no, but like even the baseline tools, like if you're wickedly good with, you know, what not curl, but like paste or BC, or I just think it's amazing what you can stitch together. It's totally impenetrable from like a production standpoint,
Yeah.
but it also they'll never break. It's just never gonna break. There's nothing you're gonna do to break 40-year-old whatever bash syntax. I mean, it's like almost impossible. And it'll run on any machine. And now with like where you could spin up whatever thousands of machines or run it on a Raspberry Pi or do whatever or Docker containers, like it just seems so easy to have like a good grasp of the baseline tools, which is why I like R2. I mean, R has more stuff, but like R itself, it's not hiding anything. It's very, you can
Yeah.
see that's the beauty of R2 is like you can see every function you run. You can just type the function bear and see the whole code, right? It's like, and the discoverability, like every part of that is so appealing to me that that's what I would always try and do. So yeah, I don't get too tied down to what's the newest thing. It's got to take, I would say it's like, because oh God, I would have learned so many dumb things by now if I
Yep.
like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, not even dumb, but like Julia's, and I don't want to say Julia's dumb, but I, sorry, you can cut me off again anytime you want.
No,
But
there's an infinite number of them because in your mind, I remember a friend is like, you got to learn Rust. And I'm like, I'm just
yeah,
doing statistical modeling. No, you need Rust. I'm like, I don't know. And then Julia came up, and now with like the AI stuff, everyone's like, oh, you need to learn all this prompt engineering, and then we could add. And I'm just like scratching my head, like to your point, C++, R, like just the core foundational programming tools instead of having to
yeah.
try to learn every new fad. And like Julia is a great example because it's going to be the next thing. It's going to be big. Everyone's going to use it. And I've been hearing that for like 5 years now. I'm like, no one's using
So
it.
my backstory on that one is so there used to be a conference in St. Louis called Strange Loop, which is like,
Okay.
it was the coolest conference. It's gone now. He shut it down. But it was genuinely one of the coolest conferences. It lasted, I think, 10 years. So excellent run. And it was one of these like 3,000 person conferences. They ran it at the couple of venues downtown St. Louis. And it was just brilliant. And it was if you were building a computer language, that's the conference you go to. So you'd run into people who were just the smartest people in the world. Just so cool. And a lot of them had no, they were never projects that would see the light of day, possibly. But the coolest things. I mean, and so Julia was introduced there, plus or minus introduced, like, but they had, big, like basically any language you could think of was kind of rolled out there. And it was like meant to be, that's where you introduce it kind of thing at some point. But I remember the Julia people they gave a presentation, and the presentation kind of was so ironic in that they listed out all of the other languages to like, it was everything from, Stata to SAS to blah, 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 blah. There's like, 50 different things, all this MATLAB and Octave and all the other languages that kind of fall into the scientific computing realm. And and the bottom one was like Julia, which was kind of like, because the other ones were sort of, we're still not there yet. And Julia was like the next one in the line. So they weren't saying it was the end of the line kind of thing, but they were kind of, it was very clear like Julia might just be one of these other ones eventually.
Yeah.
And I ended up arguing with them over drinks at like the bar that night for it must have been like 5 hours with the three of them or the two of them that were there from the founding team. The two that founded it, frankly. The other one was, I think, the academic advisor person who kind of guided them at the beginning. And still, I think he's the one who runs it now. But either way, whatever. But it was this like long, and they had it in their heads that this thing was like the best thing in the world. Like there's no one has ever conceived of this. And it was so funny because they were telling, I mean, at that point, I had, I had packages that were well used across the world for, a decade. And it was one of those like, I think you need people to use it before you're claiming anything. It's like, I'm not even claiming mine is at all even good, arguably. Like, I think, but it's like people do use it and you get feedback. Like, it's a pretty neat cycle. It's like, so you're definitely going to have to get feed. And they were just like, no, this is definitely the next big thing. And then, yeah, it seems like I mean, they raised a ton of money, right? And they always talk about NASA using it and stuff, but I have never, ever met somebody who uses it. Like,
I have not. I have heard it's always like a I am working on a side project in Julia, or I've learned
yeah,
some of the basic syntax, and I'm always in my finance realm being like, so how much time series have you done in it? And is there stationarity testing built in? And how hard would it be to program out? And to your point, it's like everyone's like, oh, I haven't used it for that. I just wanted to learn how to program like Hello World and
yep. Haskell is another one like that too, where it's like, it just seems like something I would like to learn, but I just never will, is my suspicion. Like, Erlang, man, I have so many books. I have so many books that are the aspirational languages. I could super fluent in none of them.
Oh.
So some of them never been opened. Yeah, there's a Rust one on my shelf. Two of them, I think. But yeah, Rust just didn't solve a problem to me, actually. Rust felt like the pitch of Rust was type safety for C, plus or minus.
Okay.
And so it's like it's not faster than C, right? It's like you can't really be faster than C. So it's not demonstrably faster. In fact, compile time is abominable. So like that's just like ridiculous. Doesn't work. So that's bad. Like any iterative cycles, which I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot the way I program, but it's like I would read less of the documentation. I would just hack away and try it. Right? I guess
Yeah.
maybe like the dumb version of vibe coding, maybe. We're like, I don't know, does it work? Um, but yeah, but so it was like type safety for C. But if you write C, if you understand C, I mean, you're not going to not mess up. But if you write small enough problem space code, right, like a time series code or something like that. I mean, it's not super small, but it's small enough you can probably get it right. Like you're probably pretty safe. Like I wouldn't write a GUI in it or in C. I wouldn't write something crazy.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the pitch for type safety was to people who don't even think about type safety. But so that's fine. But if you think about but why do they care then? I guess is the core of that. It's like if you write Python and people are arguing you should use Rust, like the Python person ship sailed a long time ago when they cared about anything being correct or I mean it's like there's still scientific bugs in the Python libraries that are like incorrect like incorrect stats where you're just like that's bad.
Yep.
And the people who created them have tried to get them fixed and they don't fix them. It's like
Yes.
that's not a good sign.
This has been my drive with the open source of just not liking it. It's because when I did, people go, but SaaS is really expensive. And I go, I know, we paid like $100,000 at one of the banks I was at. It's a lot of money. I'm like, but I didn't have to check everything. And
Yep.
Python doesn't work. And like working on weight of evidence transformations, and they go, well, scikit-learn has it. And I'm like, scikit-learn implements it the dumbest way you would ever possibly do it. No respectable firm would do it that way. And then they go, but it's open source. And so I'm like, then
Yeah.
there's that balance of I like open source. To your point, like an R, I always like to look at the function. I can see how it was done. I have great transparency. But then there's always that like, do I need to figure out the actual solution to this, or can I find someone that's already done the process?
Yeah, the good part of R, I will continue to argue to everyone I talk to, is that it's written by, I mean, the downside that everyone says is it's written by statisticians, not programmers, but it's like frankly, almost the last person I want writing code is a programmer. Like it's like almost, it's
Yep.
just not because they don't understand the problem space. Like I don't care. It's a domain specific language. Like I need the problem solved. I don't really care that it doesn't do type into blah blah blah. It's like none of that cares. Like no, zero. So I would much rather have a statistician writing pretty crummy code, but they know it's right. Like it's right. It's like this guy wrote the book. He's like it's I mean Brian Ripley, the guy who has kind of been I don't know if you've ever tried to submit any packages to CRAN, but like Brian Ripley it's bonkers. I have stories of like just the amount of craziness around that.
Yeah, Fred told
Just,
me when he did his NNS package, he's like, it was a ton of work and it went back and forth. And he goes, it was
yeah,
a lot. So,
100%. Yeah. We actually, while I was in Vienna, actually, we had published, R had changed something. So again, you're like, I'm sitting in an office where the guy who runs Cran created Cran, like probably one of the most important pieces of software or platforms in the history of time to be like fully like how it's used, where it's used, all the publications, everything like so central, the distribution of knowledge effectively. And we're sitting there. I'm sitting with this other guy building some features on Zoo, and it comes through that like there's a new check in R that says because you also have to compile. That's the other thing with Python. It does is you can just submit anything. I've been tempted to submit like an R
Uh-huh.
package
Yeah.
to PyPy just to make it like so you download the PyPy package and you need to install R or something. Um, just because there's nothing that stops it. Whereas like Cran, yeah, for the longest time, mine still had to compile against Solaris like 7. Where it's like this is like there aren't even machines that work anymore like this. It's like we're using so but you can't test the correctness of statistics per se, but like you can at least test the like does it have proper documentation? Does it have all this
Mhm.
other stuff? And like R was very rigorous. So the bar to get it there was like you weren't screwing around. You probably needed to know what you were doing. And if you look at the depth of packages, like they're so specific. I mean, you do have to trust it to a degree, but they're also like that person. If you were going to find the one person who was going to build something like that, that's the person who wrote it. Like it's not some hack who was like, I need this moving average thing. You're like, oh yeah, but it's got to look ahead. Like you
Yeah.
can't do both sides. Like, but that's no, yeah, it's just kind of crazy. So I like R for that, that it's, kind of ugly and the people who criticize it blow my mind. Like we're just like, I don't know, it's really good. Like it's not, it's also really nice to use. Like it's and
Yep.
again, I've used Python. I've used Python forever. That was like the first Perl and then Python. I always thought Python was just like the newest Perl, which Python people hate, but but it is. I mean, it kind of is, right? It's like, and
Yeah.
it does the job very well. And my son, unfortunately, uses Python, which I always mock him for. But
I
he does do his own.
appreciate that. I'm always the guy at work. I'm like, are we really using Python? They're like, yeah, it's great. This company wide, we're using this. And I'm like we could move to R. And then everyone does that. Well, we could run R inside of Python. And I'm like, we could, but this is not the most efficient way to do this.
Yeah, I know. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, we should chat offline here. It's yeah, we should just make this a regular weekly meeting, by the way. This is a blast.
Awesome. Jeff, it's great having you on. I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your insights.
This is great. Thank you so much for having me.